originally planned on keeping this separate, but we move on the fly with this podcast. So thank you for both joining us. And I just want to editorialize for a minute how, this crazy segue from what Adam is doing. How fortunate are we here in America? I feel guilty every day, and I'm sure you do as well. You go to the ATM, you get money out so you can buy stuff to feed your family. And, imagine this family with kids. I put my kids in a minivan with air conditioning and a DVR, and that's tough enough. I'm so moved by all this that we are so fortunate to be able to talk about our next subject as if it's so serious, and on a local level it is. But at the same time, in the life and death that in the world that Adam's living in right now, we are just so fortunate, and I hope everybody realizes that. I'm not going to apologize for being fortunate, but I am going to appreciate that we can deal with small issues that are not life and death. So with
agree.
With that segue, we have you both on because Saratoga Lake is back in the news. Just a few weeks ago, it was Snake Hill. This week, it's regarding a proposal for condos and commercial space on the south shore of Saratoga Lake in the town of Malta, where Dodana's restaurant was for years, and now it's a nostalgia ale house and wine bar. And as you might expect, have a proposal for 96 condos on a lakefront that will create some controversy, and that is certainly the case here. This issue has been in the press, and we wanted to bring some people on to talk about it and give some insight into it and so forth. So our two guests, I'll introduce you both, and then Tim, I'll go back to you. Tim Dunn is Malta Town Councilman since 2015. He serves as president of Dunn Strategy Group, a business and marketing consulting firm, and spent 2 decades working in real estate and economic development. Also, Eliot Creswell is the president of the Saratoga Lake Association. The SLA is a nonprofit organization dating back to the 1930s. I did not know that until you wrote that for me, Eliot. It has over 400 members. You can join on their website if you have a care for Saratoga Lake, and I'm a past member, I need to re-up. Their mission is to promote and enhance the health, safety, sanitation, ecology, recreation, and environmental quality of Saratoga Lake through education, charitable contributions, and environmental action. So Eliot, thank you for coming to us. Tim, back to you. You two, by the way, are our second guest ever on Talking Saratoga, so that may be a Jeopardy question someday, right?
We're thrilled to have
congratulations! This is really breaking ground for us, and this is our first live broadcast. That'll be the separate.
The green room was fantastic, Dan.
Well, how was the green room? It was good.
The snacks and the beverages in the green room.
And Robin, thank you for setting this up. I have no part of this. She has 100% part of this, and she wants me to help take over some of this. And I keep promising her I will. So far, I've been able to dodge that. But Tim, can you kind of set the table for our viewers here on this more than what I said? And if I was wrong, I'm thick-skinned. Don't be afraid to correct me on what I said so far. What can you tell us about this project, and why is it not sitting well with some of the property owners at the south end of the lake?
No, well, first of all, thank you both for having us on. Far too often what we see in projects of this magnitude is folks not getting involved on the front end, and after it gets built, then everybody gets upset. And so I think we're very fortunate on Saratoga Lake and in the town of Malta that we have a really well engaged local community and folks that really very deeply care about the community. No, you generally characterize the project correctly. What's been proposed for the former South Shore Marina location is a combination of residential and retail uses, sort of a mini community unto itself, with about 96 condos and townhouse units, along with a clubhouse, gym, pool. There's also plans for a restaurant that would be open to the public, and a small public benefit of a public accessible kayak launch with some parking spaces along with it. And you did correctly identify the location. This is the old former Dodana's Nostalgia and South Shore Marina, right at the end of Dunning Street, Plains Road, and corner of 9P.
Excellent. And so what are the next steps if this project is to go forward? Did you just have a meeting 2 nights ago? Is that correct? Can you?
Yeah. So we originally heard the original concept about a year ago on this project, quite a while ago, and it's evolved a little bit. But we did hear a presentation just on Monday night, and the proposal itself, what the developer is looking for is what's called a planned development district, or a PDD. And these are land use tools that are used primarily when there's a project that's desired to be built that doesn't directly align with existing zoning and master plan that are in place. And we see, unfortunately, a lot of these in the town of Malta. For many years, the planned development district was sort of the land use tool of first resort. We've tried to address our zoning and modernize it to avoid these PDDs because they're essentially an exception to the law. They're an appropriate and usable tool, but they're not the most easily manageable or really not, envisioned in master plans and long range plans. We did just hear a proposal from the applicant on Monday night. Last Monday night, this past Monday night, we referred the project to the planning board. And from a process standpoint, once the application for a project is deemed complete by our planning staff, the town board has 30 days to refer that project to the planning board for their review. The planning board is an independent volunteer board that's appointed by the town board. But even though they're appointed by us, they're independent from the town board. There's actually a specific exclusion in state law that prohibits town board members from interfering in the activities of the planning board. The planning board will review this project and its application and all the implications of it in a public and transparent manner as part of regular planning board meetings, and then ultimately provide a recommendation back to the town board to either reject, accept, or modify the proposal. And then ultimately it comes down to the town board to finalize and approve or disapprove the project as it has been proposed. So this is really starting the process. It's definitely a process that will take some time as we go forward.
Okay. Robin, you served as a commissioner in Saratoga Springs. Tim and Robin, do you do these jobs for the glory or all the money? I'm not sure.
The money, obviously. It's all about the money.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Robin,
$220 a week is,
It's
how can you say no to that?
Robin, you have some insight into these processes as Saratoga has, slightly different, but still parallel perhaps. Do you have any questions for Tim?
No, I'm actually it's really interesting to hear about how other municipalities, what their process is and, how it works. And I think it's helpful because I don't think we have a perfect process here by any means. And so, getting feedback early and being able to make adjustments early, I think is always great. And making compromises, which has to happen, are important. But without turning away business, I think Saratoga has suffered from so much regulation that it's been off-putting for new businesses who want to come here, or new developers who want to come here. And so, we don't want that, but we also want to protect our green spaces, and we want to make sure we follow our comp plan, which kind of lays out how the city should be developed and keeps our green belt intact. I know Saratoga Lake is always really challenging because of how many different municipalities border the lake. And so there's and correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, and Eliot, you, I'm sure, know way more than me on this subject, but because there's no one person kind of in charge of Saratoga Lake and what happens there, it can be challenging because maybe one municipality wants to do something one way and one doesn't. And when it comes to especially like issues of pollution or the watershed, I know that can be or has been tricky in the past. But Eliot can probably speak to that better than I can.
Okay, great. Well, then in that case, we will shift to Eliot. Eliot, the president of Saratoga Lake Association. Eliot, before we talk about this, I just briefly want to say, well done on Snake Hill. You had a low-key approach. My approach is to throw hand grenades and come in guns a blazing, and they'd probably be building right now. That would have failed. You had a low key approach of communication with the Dakes, and I know they listed some reasons of more economic why it was the project was scuttled, but good for you in what you did there. Congratulations! That's a big win, no matter how it came about. Now on this project, you and I spoke this week, and you don't have so much a pointed view of it. You have a more general, if I recall, but I won't steal your thunder. If you could talk about a Saratoga Lake Association view of this project, and also if you could also talk about your overall stewardship of the lake. Your view of why development affects the whole lake, why a small development is so important in ways that may not be obvious to our viewers.
Sure. Well, Tim, it's good to see you. Dan and Robin, thanks for having me. And certainly, I don't know if kudos is the right sentiment, but certainly, it's hard to put where Adam is and what he's doing out of mind at a time like this. It's just an extraordinary act that he's doing, whether it's because he's married to someone from Poland or not. So, the leadership and the courage and all that is just the tip of the spear in terms of what he's dealing with there. So it's, all the good sentiments that we have certainly are with him. And I certainly appreciated hearing an update this morning, or at least this afternoon when we tuned in. So really affecting stuff. So there's no real good segue back to what we're talking about. So I
to the lake.
Yeah, but again, we really appreciate you guys reaching out and sort of the open-minded way of approaching this. And there's a lot to these projects for sure. And as you mentioned, Dan, SLA doesn't have a defined position with regard to South Shore Marina. The Dodanas, that family have been members for many, many years, and they've been pillars for the lake community for decades, running the business in the marina and seeing that grow as the lake community itself grew. So we certainly wish them well in the next chapter, whatever that brings for them. And as Tim mentioned, the Mangino family, just a little bit down 9P, are potentially in a similar situation, longstanding pillars looking to maybe transition their property and business and open a next chapter. And, we welcome that. We encourage that. We certainly wouldn't want to oppose that. But to your point, Dan, in terms of a broader perspective, just a little bit of history for SLA. As you mentioned, we've been around since the 30s and 40s. At that time, we were called the Saratoga Lake Property Owners Association. And we've since morphed into SLA. We were incorporated as we were in the mid 90s. So that's the current sort of composition of SLA. But the roots, many of the bylaws, the members, the challenges go back generations. And the lake itself is not what it used to be. And that's not I don't mean that in a remorseful or regretful way, but like everything in our lives, it changes over time. And lakes, especially when they have a human footprint in and around them, take ongoing maintenance. They don't just find equilibrium on their own, or at least if they do, it's not an equilibrium that's necessarily compatible with human interaction. The water will change, certain events will happen, the quality, et cetera. And so it takes stewardship, it takes attention, it takes management, it takes an active collection of partners, frankly. And so SLA has been sort of the constant voice of the neighbors, of the people that come and live here, whether it's year round or seasonally. We've interacted with municipalities as best we can. Those relationships, like any, there have been times where they're really strong and close. There have been other times where they're more strained or distant. And we're constantly working to improve that from our perspective. And so just to bring this down to a really specific example, I think, Robin, you highlighted this dynamic. If you think of a typical oval bathtub that's not dissimilar to the shape and contour of Saratoga Lake, and while we may draw lines around that as political and geographic entities, the bathtub doesn't know any different. The bathtub doesn't know where Stillwater ends and where Saratoga begins. And if you fill that bathtub with water and squirt a bunch of, say, food coloring in there, the food coloring is not going to ask you where the Malta town line is and say, well, I'm not supposed to go beyond here because I'm from Malta. I'm going to stay to my little corner. And so, I don't mean to be cute with it, but that's the dynamic. And
that's helpful, actually. That's
a good analogy.
The stewardship element comes in. And so again, by way of a short history lesson, in 1986, legislation was passed at the state level to create the Saratoga Lake Protection and Improvement District. Many you may know it by SLIPID as the acronym. That they have 5 commissioner seats, 1 for each municipality, and then an at-large seat. And then luckily, they very recently appointed a full-time staff member, Christina, who is just doing a tremendous job. She has deep roots in this area, cares very, very deeply about the lake. So that's a government entity. They are a government entity. They're a taxing authority. Their jurisdiction runs just a little bit past the bridge on Fish Creek on Union Ave, if you're familiar. And they collect money and they run those big, weird orange harvester things that you might see out on the water. Those are theirs. And they do pesticide applications, different things. So we're always trying to complement what they do. We are a 501c3. We are a nonprofit. We are, a very different animal. But the more we can have, healthy communicative relationships with the town of Malta, with Stillwater, who I give a lot of credit for showing, a lot of leadership and forward thinking on this stuff. In addition to all our business and individual members, we have a terrific board. We have terrific members, and maybe we can book another hour sometime and I can tell you how great they all are. But, hopefully that kind of zooms out a little bit in that a little project like Snake Hill, like Cedar Bluff, like South Shore, certainly we respect property owners' rights. We are many of those property owners. That's not what we're about. But we're also trying to think about the parts and the whole, the forest and the trees at the same time, so that the long-term health of the lake, the property value, the recreational value, the ecological value that it brings to Saratoga, we get to share them with future generations, just like past ones did for us.
Great.
So is there, Eliot, do you have specific concerns about this proposal that you've articulated to Tim or the bodies that are debating it right now, the planning boards and whatnot?
You're talking about the South Shore project?
Correct.
Yeah, we've had some board members put together some commentary and some specific kind of technical points on particular aspects of it. And Tim and the other board members have seen those, and they're very thoughtfully weighing them. So, but we don't, at the moment, we're not sort of for or against. We recognize that things change over time, and again, the Dodanas have worked hard over the years, and if this is their next chapter, then we wish them well. But stormwater mitigation is always top of mind, and the reason for that, if you think about that bathtub model, everything that's higher than the lake is going to drain into the lake. The watershed for Saratoga Lake is over 240 square miles. We have a larger drainage area than Lake George. I don't know if people really fully appreciate that. Things that happen in Northumberland and Charlton and Greenfield, it's a trickle, but it still is all part of the same ecological system. And so it's all about balance. How can we allow, responsible, modest development where it's appropriate in alignment with zoning and regulations, of course, that also preserve the quality of the lake that draws the development in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. There are examples of lakes, Ballston Lake has been dealing with some of these issues. There's been examples of lakes that have frankly just had to shut down. They are not approachable or swimmable or interactable with human or animal life. And that's a little bit gloom and doom. I don't mean to emphasize that, but that is in the realm of possibility given certain circumstances. So, we're trying to engage. We're trying to listen to everybody we can. And it's a tough task that the town has and the developers to find something that everybody can agree with. So,
yeah. And Eliot, I gotta say, hits on a couple really great points there. And the stormwater runoff is really, from where I sit, one of the biggest concerns. You have some interesting scenarios along the Malta shoreline of Saratoga Lake, and we're only one community, obviously, in the lake. But we have a significant part of Saratoga Lake in the town of Malta that isn't really buildable. They're with slopes and in other areas, you're not seeing a lot of development pressure in those areas because it's just not practical. We have 2 rather large parcels on the lakefront in Dodana's / South Shore Marina and the Mangino's property that are larger, that have seen commercial operations in the past, but they're what's called, non-conforming uses that are they're legal non-conforming uses, excuse me, because they were there before the zoning. And then you have all these other properties along the lake that are residential. But what we've seen is this transition over the generations where, in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of these properties were seasonal camps. They might have been 800,000 square foot houses that were used just in the summertime, that now over generations, people love the lake and they want to enjoy time in the lake. And those smaller seasonal properties have become year round and sometimes larger properties. I used to serve on the Malta zoning board, and let me tell you, on a monthly basis, we would have a variance request come in seeking to, build larger than the footprint somewhere down on the lakefront with one of these smaller properties. And you drive along the lakefront, and you can see the very, very small lot lines with the building coverage on these lot lines. That's something that, you want to encourage people to live on and enjoy the lake. But I'm not sure that the balance has been found there in the way that we have regulated that and allowed for variances along the lake. There aren't a lot of opportunities for developments along the lake where the town can really have more of a regulatory approach to stormwater. And, if someone wants to encourage business growth, I hesitate to ever use the word regulate, because I shudders from my youth as a Reagan supporter of regulation. But the reality is, if governments don't take stormwater management seriously, it's going to really, really significantly impact the lake. And this is a project in particular where we want to make sure it's done correctly to make sure that we can improve stormwater management in that neighborhood.
Great.
Well, I there's so much to talk about here, but I've got to wrap you guys, only because we have another segment coming up and we've gone a little long. But I just have to say, the big difference I'm seeing here between how we do things in Saratoga Springs and what you're describing is that we never don't have someone that doesn't have a strong opinion. So hearing Eliot say he's not for or against, I'm like blown away. So I think
Robin,
that's a good sign.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, Robin. Before Eliot goes, Eliot, say the website, and I think it's just $35 for someone to join SLA. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's various memberships, but yeah, SaratogaLake.org, and there's a big old join us button right there at the top. Thank you.
Sorry, Robin, back to you. Thank you.
And to find more information on the project, you could go to malta-town.org. And if you click through to our planning department, you'll see documents listed there and a link for proposed planning districts. And you'll be able to find this information on the project.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Robin, you're a whiz at providing those things on our Talking Saratoga sites and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'll make sure I get that information out. Thank you both so much for your approach and for coming on and for being so collaborative in all these projects. I think it's the best thing for everybody. So Thank you. We appreciate it. And I hope we can have you back soon.
Thank you. Best to have.
Thank you.